They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
We have such sights to show you.
Who's laughing now?
I'll drive you crazy. I'll kill you all. I'm the best nightmare you've ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
They're here. And here we are. Hi, Frankie. Rare to see you here.
Sorry, random.
Weird. I just see this big, full freaking beard when I look over.
Oh my goodness. No, he's helping for once. He got me a lighter. I appreciate that. Completely threw off my intro, though. I apologize because we have a special guest today.
We do.
It's nice to see an extra face here, a fresh face, someone.
Another girl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm working on that. Yeah, come on, give me a break. I'm here. Anyway. Elliot, how are you doing? You want to give everybody a little intro to you for a moment? Nothing too personal, just social security and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. You want my routing number? How do we do this? You want the account number, everything?
Oh, yeah, just put it in the comments so everyone can make sure they get them down right.
Yeah, check in the caption below. You'll find my banking info. I'm Elle. I'm currently in Dallas, Texas. I'm a tattoo artist, and I'm here to talk about some moida.
Indeed. I like that. I like that a lot.
Moida.
It makes it sound a little more fun than we might actually have tonight because it's a very Debbie Downer of a topic.
Oh, yeah. You came to join us for probably one of the worst ones we've talked about in a long time, to be honest. This was really, really upsetting after, watching the family talk about it. And unfortunately, spoiler, it's still unsolved.
Allegedly. On record.
Yeah. Supposedly, it's unsolved.
Conspiracy theories about this.
I do too.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I'm not alone in kind of jumping to some conclusions, but I feel like after a little bit of research, and I think, I don't know if you guys watch it too, but a big shout out to Local 4 of Oakland County News. They did an amazing documentary on this. So if you guys want a little more information, I would recommend going to check them out because they did a wonderful job. They deserve the credit they get because they did a very difficult job from reporting it when it happened to a new documentary. I believe it's 15 years old now, but they've been keeping the interest and the presence of mind, awareness, the fervor for this case alive for so long because these people still deserve to know what happened to their kids and to know what happened to their families. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how long it's been. It doesn't matter if, we might have our opinions. Definitive answers would be wonderful. It really would be.
Of course.
So that's my spiel. I apologize. I went on a total tirade right there, but.
Oh no, it's cool. I don't know. I guess we should just get into it. I wanted to just kind of go into the victims really quick and how they were found. I think it's important for people to kind of see, especially with this film that came out recently, The Sound of Freedom, your kids, trafficking doesn't just consist of them being taken to, a whole other country. Trafficking literally just means, and I mentioned it last week, it just means that you're taking somebody from one place to another for a nefarious intent against their will for the most part. I think it should be called kidnapping because it essentially is. But yeah, you're just moving somebody from one place to another, and this like really, it's, I don't know, it should make people aware that anything could happen, even if your kids are like these kids. They seemed old enough to go and be on their own and walk to the store, and their parents thought it was fine, especially in the 70s when this occurred, because it was more of a trusting time back then. So yeah, it just really sucks, and hopefully this spreads even more awareness, even though this was like years ago. Like, imagine if this happens now, what's going to happen in 30 years when we don't know where these kids are still. Hopefully we'll have the technology that these people didn't at the time to kind of, with DNA and stuff. But
yeah, that's actually going to get touched on a little bit later too, with one of the suspects, DNA finally coming up to help. Real quick question for you guys though. Elle, I want to start with you. As a kid, if you're looking back, like, do you remember being allowed to kind of just not to walk the streets, but like go places in your neighborhood, in your area, and feel relatively safe?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I grew up in the 90s, so I feel like I was running the streets the whole time. Like, I remember being maybe 7, 8, 9, and having to like hide in my backyard because my 3-year-old little brother was trying to follow me out, but it just felt safe, you know what I mean? And we didn't have cell phones then. Kids didn't have pagers on them. Nobody was tracking us. It was just kind of like, go do your thing, stay in your little area, and then come home. And that's what's so sad about these specific cases, because these kids were in their neighborhoods, they were in their area. Anyone that would have seen them would have known, had some idea of who they were, seen them around every day. And I think something else to be noted is just that a lot of these kids, the moment they went missing, or all of them, their families knew something was wrong. So that like level of understanding and intuition, you know what I mean? So it wasn't like these kids were just running around and no one knew where they were. They were in their neighborhood. They were safe.
Yeah,
that's a really good point too, that the families, like, it seemed like right away they knew, like, something is wrong. We know their behavior, we know their routines. This is completely out of the ordinary. That's a really good point to bring up too, because I think I don't want to like bash on parents nowadays or anything, because you know your kids. I know you guys are good out there, but because we rely so much on technology versus that old fashioned, just, hey, be where you're supposed to be at this time. It can get a little trickier, and we have more stuff that we can. I don't want to say like track your kids. I'm not saying put an air tag on your child right now or anything, but we have things that we can help out, and it still scares me to think about, like Lauren was saying about the movie, like The Sound of Freedom. I still want to watch that. I haven't got to actually do a deep dive in that at all, but
it's really not like people are saying how it's like a QAnon conspiracy. Like, they mention God maybe like once or twice, and then they don't even put politics in any of it. So it's not a right or left thing. It's just a human thing. It just so happens that the people who made the movie are more conservative and they're Christians or Catholics or whatever. So that's really why people are shitting on it, which I get, because there's a long-standing history with the Catholic Church for sure. But that's a whole other fucking episode.
Can't deny that. But then I wanted to, Lauren, same for you, because you grew up not in Bakersfield, right? Like, it was
right. I grew up in Bell Gardens, which is a little outside of LA, and we used to walk home from school, even in LA, which was like the area that we lived in was like still kind of scary. But our parents, they really didn't have a choice. We didn't live close to anyone that could pick us up from school, so we would just walk around from school to home. And it was a little safer at the time, even though, funny enough, we were surrounded by gangs in our area, which, I mean, gang members don't usually prey on children, which was cool. It's like that biker code, like, you don't fuck with kids. So that was kind of, that's kind of cool. But still, like, at the same time, like, scary. oh my God. Walking home from school, sometimes grown men would pull over and ask me if I wanted a ride home. It was scary. You're a child. A literal grown man was pulling up to you. But, sometimes there were other kids around, so they wouldn't, they would see that there were witnesses and then drive away. But it happened to me like once.
That's good, but still shouldn't happen at all.
Yeah. I mean, it literally only happened once when I was a kid, but living there, I mean, it happened again after I moved here too, but I was
literally just trying to say hi to you. I was waving from the other car, Lauren. Right?
Miguel's trying to kidnap me.
First of all, no, it was aggressively trying to get you to not hitchhike with somebody else. But I'm gonna call it. But anyway, enough of this. But
when I was younger, it was different. It was a lot different, which is weird because you think back, this was even earlier than the 90s when I was a kid walking home from school. Yeah, and
we're talking about the 76 to 77.
Yeah, 76 to 77. So it's like, I don't know. What was it? Maybe that we started hearing about this stuff more, or has it always been happening?
I feel like that's a good point. Maybe just a little more eyes on it and a little more because there's cameras everywhere now. There's a lot more connectivity. Social media, TV's better, communications better across the board. I would hope that that's not exactly the case, because no matter what, if a child goes missing in a certain area, you would hope the entire area is pitching in to help with that. But there is something to be said about, the Amber Alert system and just social media doing its job to help find people. What was that documentary? Don't fuck with cats, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Oh God, I still haven't brought myself to watch it.
Yeah, I couldn't get through it either because I just
it's
don't.
Hard. I'm so like, ugh. I don't know if I can handle it.
The internet came to the rescue, though. I mean, the internet really helped catch this guy.
The connectivity of everybody being able to in an instant be like, this is what's happening, this is who it is, and kind of hone in on those things and really keep our focus on it is
wonderful.
Yeah, it's great.
I love TikTok for that reason too, to be honest, even though I got called a snowflake about some things. I won't get into it.
Oh my God.
TikTok really, I love TikTok for that reason. Not for that reason, but I mean, just getting the word out there so quickly and everyone just being honest on there for the most part, and people catching other people and be like, okay, this is what's really happening. Even breaking down the media, which that's a whole other thing. I don't really want to get into that. I don't know how I trailed off. But
no, I'm sorry. That was probably my fault. Let's definitely go into as you said, the first of the confirmed victims in this situation.
The confirmed victims. I do say confirmed because apparently there were some victims that they thought were part of this whole thing that were not, just because of all the suspects that they had. Some cases they thought were linked. I'm not going to get into that specifically. I'm just going to talk about the victims.
There were an initial 3, right, that are kind of loosely attached to this, but
they're not sure. They're not 100%.
We know of 4 that are definitely in this case. They're all connected. Evidence that connects them, witnesses. Yeah.
These 4 kids were all between the ages of 10 and 12. Mark Douglas Stebbins was 12, and he went missing on February 15th of 1976. 4 days later, he was found sexually assaulted. His body showed evidence of being bound on his wrists. And these are actually all very important to keep in mind, because this is the same thing that all the other victims experienced. His body showed evidence of being bound. He was sodomized with an object. He was held captive for a few days, the evidence showed. And he was fully clothed, disposed of behind an office complex. So This is actually consistent with some of the other murders besides the shot to the head for poor little, oh my god, this is really fucking shitty. Christine Marie Mihalik.
Jill, correct? Jill was shot in the face with a shotgun.
I think it was Jill Robinson.
That was Chris.
Robinson.
Was it?
It was Jill, yeah.
That would be
Was
good
it Jill? Oh, I must have mixed them up. One. Yep, you're right. I read this one instead of this one, but yes, that's correct. She was also found fully clothed. If you want to bring up a picture of her too.
Going for Jill first, right?
Little Jill, yeah. That was the next one on my thing. I don't know why I crossed over to that one. Sorry, guys. That was my bad. Jill went missing December 22nd of 1976. So this was like way later in the year. She was found the next day, shot in the face, fully clothed. There was, again, evidence that she had been fed and taken care of, but also bound. She went missing after she had a fight with her mom, and I can't imagine how her mom feels about this, dude. Like, she had a fight with her mom about something, and her dad lived a little less than like 5 miles away from the home, so she grabbed a backpack, did the whole typical kid, like, I'm running away. I've done that before when I was little, like, I'm running away. And so she just, try to go. Her sister assumed that she was going to her dad's house, which she never showed up at, unfortunately. She was last seen in front of like a hobby shop, kind of like a Hobby Lobby or like a Michael's or something, like that kind of store. And of course it showed that she had been groomed and fed and clothed and taken care of too, but they found her on an interstate in a ditch, which that's so fucking heartbreaking to just like I think her sister or somebody else in the interview that I watched was talking about how it felt like these bodies being placed where they were was like taunting police.
Well, something to note about Jill was that her body was dumped within earshot of the police station.
Oh my god, I didn't even know that.
It was dumped right beyond an exit on I-75 that would have led right to Flint, Michigan, and it's known by the evidence on the crime scene that she was shot on site, and there is actually a theory about that we can get into if you'd like. But
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because when I first read this, I was like, okay, how are we connecting Jill to the others? Because all the other ones had signs of strangulation, and that was the cause of death. Jill, shot in the face with a shotgun and dumped. But when Jill left her house, it's presumed that she was going to her dad's house, and that would have been maybe because of the distance, like an hour bike ride. She leaves on her bike, she packs up a couple books, some clothes, you know what I mean? Tells her sister, or maybe hints to her sister that she's going to her dad's, and disappears, never to be seen again. Mom assumed that she would go outside in half an hour and see her sitting there ready to apologize and come back in. She was gone, calls the dad, she's gone. This is right before Christmas. This is days before Christmas. Jill's body is found dumped. It was dumped Christmas night. So her body is found the next day. And something also that's really tragic about this is, her family was still looking for her, and no one opened their Christmas presents because they were waiting for Jill to come back.
Yeah.
I heard that in the documentary. Like, that's really fucking sad, dude. The sister was like, I don't even know what I got, but I don't even care. Like,
of course. So she's delivered, to the side of the highway, dumped like a piece of trash by the police station. She's shot in the face. The theory about this is there's actually a witness that saw a car pull over before the exit. And the car must have noticed that there was another car behind it, and they kind of swerved off the shoulder back onto the side of the road, and that was the last all of them. And the next morning, she's found just beyond the exit, the same clothes that she was in, wearing her backpack on her back. So the detective investigated this case said that normally after death, there's a little bit of air in the body still. So the person that dumped her, there was only one set of footprints in the snow. The person that dumped her brought his shotgun, presumably in case the police showed up or the other car that saw him showed up. Dumps her on her back. She lands on the backpack and lets out a little bit of air. So him thinking that maybe she's still alive.
That makes sense. He probably shot her because he thought she was still alive.
Still breathing. Yeah. Oh gosh. That real quick before we go too far into it. This is not the same witness that saw the blue gremlin, right?
No, said
yeah, different.
Pontiac.
It was a woman that saw the gremlin, supposedly.
Yeah. Okay. Darkly, a very specific Pontiac, and he knew it was the Pontiac because he owned the same model.
Oh, okay.
He knew exactly what car this was, and I don't want to jump into some of the key players in this, but this was a car known to be owned by one of our suspects.
Oh no, bring the name up. We'll go back into it too. Don't worry. Yeah.
Let's talk about Arch Sloan. Arch Sloan had this specific Pontiac, dark green. This same vehicle, there was mitochondrial evidence that connected them 1 and 4. That would be Mark Stebbins and Tim King. So Arch Sloan is a known evidence connecting him to these kids, but no convictions were ever made for whatever reason. That's for anyone to speculate.
See, the thing about Arch Sloan is, or Arch, I don't know how to pronounce his name properly. Arch.
That's so weird. No, why not go by Archie?
Well, if you look at him, I don't want to judge
people. I'm gonna call you Arch or Ark. That's fucking weird.
This dude looks guilty as hell. He's already in jail for it beforehand, like for other crimes.
Right.
He's guilty. They found fibers on Mark and Tim King, victim number 4. They found fibers on the bodies of these kids that matched fibers in his car.
They found hair, I believe.
Yeah, they found hair. These kids were in his vehicle, and this is the same vehicle. Oh, and then this vehicle is also connected to Christine Mihel, because the person that saw this vehicle pull off onto the shoulder of the road noticed that it had damage to the taillight and to the rear bumper. This matches indentations in a snowbank where Christine Mihelic's body was dumped. That's victim number 3. So this car is tied to every single body.
It's just dead on pretty much. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what else they're looking for really.
It's a game of connect the dots, but it would almost seem like people are very affluent. There's a lot of oversight, but it also almost seems like the police allowed this to happen. And as we get into some of these suspects, you'll really see
Barry King, Timothy's father, was saying the same thing. So let's go into Christine really quick. I'm gonna, so that people have more context about what you were saying about her crime scene. So Christine Marie Mihalik, excuse me. She was about 10 years old. She went missing January 1st of 1977. Again, she was found fully clothed. All the children that have been found are fully clothed, wearing the same stuff as if like they had been assaulted and then dressed again.
I believe only the boys though were found with actual, sexual assault wounds, if I remember correctly. It was the 2 boys.
Yeah. Oh, actually, Christine as well. There's a lot of miscommunication and kind of like taking back.
Yeah, this one was like really weird.
First person that examined her said she was definitely assaulted. She was definitely raped. And then the next person that looked at it said, no, it can't be. And they actually had to bring it to a board where people looked and kind of like voted, oh, we think she was, we think she wasn't. But there's no very black and white kind of thing with a 12-year-old girl. You know what I mean?
So crazy to me.
Yeah, that's got to be such a horrible job to have, first of all, for any, whether you think she is or not, like to have to bring that news to the family, to the caseworkers, to everybody. And this entire time, especially when we keep talking about the fact that they could tell that they were kept for quite some time, whether it was a couple of days or a week, it doesn't really matter. It really is horror movie level awful. It reminds me of the one that came out recently, like The Black Phone.
Yeah.
Kept them in the basement. It's just, This is literally stuff that you would think of to ruin people's nights in a horror movie. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
Christine was kept the longest, correct? She was kept for 19 days while the other
19 days. And her family was talking about, well, maybe she was kept the longest because she was such a sweetheart, which fucking broke my soul, dude. Like, I was trying to keep it together because I knew this one was going to be bad, but it almost fucking broke my being. Like, the fact that she was kept the longest and her family said it's because she was the sweetest little girl ever. And like, that's not.
I'm sorry. Catherine King in an interview, Catherine King, formerly Catherine King, Catherine Broad, that would be Timothy King's older sister, speculated that there was a known child pornography ring happening in that area.
Oh yeah, I did a little bit of research on that shit too.
Yeah,
what's the guy's name? Jerry.
North Fox Island with Jerry Richards
and Francis Sheldon. Yes, but
I couldn't find a picture of Francis.
No.
Well, Francis disappeared, and Francis fixed the men. There was random DNA found that was never associated with anyone, and I'm gonna go ahead.
Dude, this is some fucking like 70s Epstein shit.
It was, yeah. They had a pedophile island and everything.
God damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to bring up, but then there was a few cases like this throughout there. It's some of them can be linked more to like the satanic panic that was happening in the country, where kids were thinking like, oh, we've been abducted by these Satan worshipers and taking into these tunnels, and then it covers up these actual real stories like this. Like, I have a feeling that a lot of people listening right now may not have heard of an entire island in Michigan that was used, to hurt children. I think it's not very well talked about.
There was a teacher who would fly a fucking plane. He was a gym teacher, and 2 of his victims actually were on camera. Well, one of them was not a victim, but he was, because he liked to explore, and so he kind of got away with not getting unscathed, basically. Good for him. But there was another boy, man now, talked about how, like, he was assaulted and all that stuff. And I'm not going to go into detail about that because that's horrific. But, yeah, like, these boys were talking about, like, how their teacher took them to an island and there were cameras everywhere. And some other boys, they could hear screaming in a locked room. Like, just fucking horrific. Fucking horrific.
No.
Under the guise of a troubled teen-esque camp, they would take boys there and they would call it photo time, I believe. But they had magazines that they distributed, and there was a whole
It's like those parties that you hear these like celebrities, these older male celebrities talking about now, who have been assaulted in Hollywood and are talking about, oh yeah, we were in the hot tub, like, this is just, they fed us like drugs and alcohol and we were just hanging out and like we got this cool island to run around on and like this cool cabin and just away from our parents. Like, they thought that it was like a huge sleepover, like cool, fun, like guys weekend, but turns out it was not. It's so sad. And so they assumed that these people had to do, were involved with these murders. Unfortunately, it turns out that they weren't, but it's great because they arrested so many people from this. Like, in investigating these murders of these poor children, they were able to make arrests of so many other people that were involved in like other nefarious shit.
Well, it was almost a small network. All of these men are associated,
Yeah.
The connection's real.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, unfortunately, they didn't catch the other people who were involved. But I mean, still, From what I read, they called it separate. I think that's just because they couldn't link it, so they had to call it something separate.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, but
yeah, they couldn't say that these people were also in on this because they don't have the evidence for it. But I mean, we all fucking know. We know.
Well,
I'm sure it had to do with that. Oh, sorry, your mic cut out for a sec.
Oh no, I said there was a mystery man, and all these men were connected. It almost seems as if it had to be one of these guys.
Yeah. The infrastructure they built was there. It only makes sense that, it doesn't make sense, but it's logical that they might have had something to do with these murders. It's definitely doesn't make sense to me. It just, it stands to reason, I guess.
Well, but it doesn't make sense to rape children because...
No, that's what I'm saying. That's not what it is.
But,
But what I want to bring up, I don't think there was any direct connection between Arch and the island, though. I don't know if was there any connection?
I don't think so either.
There was.
Ooh, okay.
Not sure. I know there's a lot of names here. Richard Lawson, Ted Lamborghini was connected.
We have pictures of all of them too. I look for them.
Yeah, let me bring some.
And I would say that in some way connected to Francis Sheldon, but I might just be connecting these because they were happening at the same time.
That was Richard Lawson. This guy was claiming that he supposedly knew who did it, and he was the one who named Ted Lamborghini or Lamborghini or however the fuck you say his stupid name.
Yeah.
And was saying that he did it, and his brother Bob and him were both in on it. Basically, and then supposedly he didn't know his real last name, which is confusing. I do want to go back to the last victim though, because I didn't talk about him.
No worries.
Which Timothy King, his father is the one who is, or was at the time, most looking for answers, like really hounding the police and really doing his own research. Barry King, I love that man. I'm not sure if he's passed or not. He might be. I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember seeing him recently. I didn't look it up. I was kind of not really sure if I wanted to know. But Timothy King was 11 or 12. I'm not sure. They didn't 100%. The documentary I watched said 11 or 12, which
11.
Annoying.
I think it's 11. Yeah.
Okay. He was found again, fully clothed, groomed, and fed still. He went missing from March 16th, 1977, and found on March 22nd, 1977. He was found in a ditch, and the last time somebody saw him, he was on a skateboard. And he was the one, supposedly, that was found or reported to have been talking to someone, which is what got this whole ball rolling. A woman came forward and said that she saw this boy talking to a man who had shaggy hair, a rusted-colored jacket, sideburns, he was soft-spoken, had a dark complexion, 25 to 35 years old, and he had to have been familiar with the area. And supposedly this blue gremlin came into this whole story, this blue gremlin vehicle. That is what led people basically on a witch hunt.
Yeah, it was
snowballed.
With the blue gremlin being pulled over, questioned, everyone was suspicious of you.
Ooh, do you want to talk about that a little bit, Elle?
About what?
About him, about this whole blue gremlin. Did you?
No, I was just adding on to what you were saying.
Oh, okay. No, I thought you. Yeah.
I'll go a little bit into this part real quick. Yeah, they did a full stop and search, or people in the area, since it was so widely spread, almost considered a fact. Like, it was no longer suspect. This is the person they believed did it, and it went throughout the entire community very quickly. So anytime this car or a similar looking car would pop in, people called the police. If the police saw it, they would stop them, they would check them, they would question the driver, and unfortunately, it just wasn't true. So it wasted a lot of time and a lot of efforts looking for something that just wasn't part of the actual case. And I believe the sheriff deputy, or the sheriff at the time, gave them full permission to do such a thing, because you're not supposed to just stop everybody just because of the car. You know, you're supposed to have a little more cause than that. Excuse me.
Sorry, Elle, just real quick, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just noticed that you have a lot more information than I do, and I was like, I bet she knows.
Well, I heard, and somebody backed up on this, that Chris Bush had a very similar car to Lynn.
Yes, it was like a. Oh shoot. Oh, I don't remember. Never mind. Sorry, I got it mixed up with the other car that Arch Sloan had. Okay, I got that mixed up.
That's the gentleman Chris was talking about.
Oh my god.
Can I add in something about I think it's a misnomer, the babysitter?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
There was a lot of misinformation being put out, which you could say at first, maybe they're putting out this misinformation as they're profiling because they don't want all the facts out, because they don't want...
Yeah, you want to try to trick the perpetrators into maybe exposing or...
Yeah, because they never charged or convicted anyone, it almost just seemed like they were misdirecting people just to keep people on the case. But there is...
That makes sense.
A lot of my info comes from... again, Catherine Broad, Timothy King's older sister, you know, because her father did so much research. She had access to reports. Her dad bought a lot of police reports. And I'm going to botch this guy's name, J. Reuben Appelman, who wrote the book The Kill Jar and did the podcast You Know They Know. And he also did a TV show, a docu-series called Children of the Snow that really gets into this. He had access to
Children of the Snow. I saw that on the list of things to watch.
Huge.
Or to read.
Access to medical examiner reports, everything. So it was put out in the media that these kids were groomed and cleaned, their fingernails scrubbed. This was a maniac that knew forensic evidence and crime scene investigation. It's not true.
Yeah.
If you look at the autopsy reports and the police reports, these children were wearing the same clothes the whole time. These clothes were heavily soiled. There was semen present. There was kids were dirty. They were fed, but they weren't clean and taken care of. It was put out to.
That's so crazy. That's because that's, you know, obviously I'm wrong, but that's what I was fed as well, and I've been saying that the whole time.
No, that's a good. No. Because that's what they were putting out. So it's good to kind of get that, if you were following these cases at the time, they called it the Babysitter Killer because these kids were so taken care of. But now we call it the Oakland County Child Murders because these kids were not taken care of. Another thing I want to point out, I just want to go ahead and throw out Gregory Green. Have we talked about him at all?
Barely. He passed a polygraph and he was also suspected. I did send a picture in for you, Miguel. So I want to pull him up. He looks like Richard Ramirez, slightly.
So another thing,
squint a little bit.
Sorry. Another thing about these polygraphs is that it was later interpreted by another polygrapher, and it was very obvious that they failed these polygraphs. But it was put out at the beginning that they passed. They failed these polygraphs miserably. It was so obvious. Gregory Green, it was found out after the fact that he had Gregory Green was a very close affiliate of Chris Bush, who was huge in this. It was found out had a.
If you remember reading that, they were all kind of intertwined, so they had to.
Yeah,
check everyone.
Tim Lamborghini are all connected.
Yeah.
Had a room in his house, a secret room. That was large enough. His family found it later, and they knew exactly what it was. Greg Green also came from California. Let me make sure this is Greg Green that I'm talking about before I throw it out. And you guys also, again, back me up or correct me if I'm wrong. Greg Green came from California. They pretty much threw him to Michigan after he was convicted of 50 counts of child rape.
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, I remember that, yeah.
He came directly to Flint, Michigan, and was accepted for a position on a boys' little baseball team. He was a coach. He lied his way through it and said, as long as I'm not alone with kids, it's okay. So, so
Yeah.
the
Of course he did.
doing, and
No, I'm cool. I'm not doing anything. I swear.
yeah, so that's all I had to throw in there about Greg Green.
Jesus Christ. Well, that's all I had was the fact that he didn't pass, or that he passed his polygraph test. So I'm glad that you said something.
I think
research has been
I don't want to.
effectual.
Yeah, I don't want to like blame the police for everything. I try not to. I try to give them benefit out. This is a very difficult job, but I don't think that they were. What's the word I'm looking for? They weren't good with the technology they had at the time yet. So they look at the results. And, yeah, it looks right to me. Pass them. Put it
Also,
along.
DNA. To be honest, DNA does take a long time to process. Especially back in the day, like they got a hair and they're like, cool, we gotta wait like however many fucking years to get it.
But I don't think they even had the option then.
Yeah, they didn't have DNA. That came maybe a decade later or decades later.
No, we didn't get that until 2010.
Yeah, they collected a hair, but like
it wasn't until like early or early 2010s or like 2009 or something.
Yeah, they collected hair and then we'll just save it.
I mean, they
we'll just save it.
Carpet fibers that were, and this isn't conclusive, but that were the same color as the carpet that was found in Greg Green's little secret room. Something also interesting, when they questioned Greg Green, he threw out Chris Bush as the murderer of Mark Stebbins. Immediately, he said, I know who did Mark Stebbins. He threw out Chris Bush. He also admitted that him and Chris about abducting children and keeping them for days, and they set up their schedules so that one of them would work days and one of them would work nights so that they could stay with the kids, and then they never respond to what they were going to do with the kids afterwards. But
interesting,
there was enough way that these guys did it.
Okay, so there was something that I looked up, and that was said in the documentary, which obviously has been disproved, but in July 2012, DNA that was taken from Tim's body was the same mtDNA, which I don't 100% know what that stands for.
That means mitochondrial.
Yeah.
Mitochondrial, okay. Same as a 1966 crime involving Archibald Stone. There was a guy named Gunnels that was suspected of luring him into the vehicle for Christopher Bush, which is kind of what you were talking about.
Can we say that
how they were kind of like
one more time
working together?
Can we point out that Vince Gunnels was a 15-year-old boy that was molested and had a convicted rape charge against one of these men? I want to say it was Greg Green, but it might have been Art Stone. So he is, and Vince Gunnels won't stop this to this day. They matched hair evidence from Vince to Tim King's body, and Vince did admit that they would use him to lure children. I mean, Vince has been homeless, on drugs, in and out of jail.
I watched his interview saying, like, I'm real sorry for those boys. I'm really sorry for their families. But he didn't, like, exclusively say, he was in on it. And also, he looked really rough. And I feel so bad because hurt people. If he did do it, he was hurt. So of course he's going to use that to like try to gain some affection from his abusers.
I mean, he's a victim, and they used the fun because he was a child.
Yeah, of course. It's so sad. And a lot of times too, people use kids to get other kids. And a lot of times they use women to get kids to come and do whatever. Like they lure kids with women and other children for the most part.
It's not unheard of. You have the Dean Coral case where he had two starting as teenagers and then into their early 20s helping him get children in one small part of Texas. They think John Wayne Gacy had a few different accomplices that were also starting at children's ages.
Yeah,
What was it?
That's a whole other conspiracy we got to get into too, because that kind of falls into like where the tunnels and all the caves are around the country, and then how close pedophile rings were to all these pedophiles that got caught for their like own separate little crimes they were doing. I don't know. It's crazy.
Just looking at this case, like again, the infrastructure they built to make the island is definitely spread to this entire area. Which, if memory serves correctly, they said this was a very affluent area of Michigan. This was not a poor neighborhood. This was not a place that wasn't monitored by the police. This was somewhere where people
abuse children.
Quote unquote, yeah.
Family, very affluent family. I want to say that it was gas that his family was involved in, or GM something, but it was the big industry at the time.
Christopher Bush was General Motors.
General Motors. Okay, Chris' mother paid off some of his child abuse victims to not name her son. So that could be a reason that he was arrested.
And they were friends with judges. They were friends with the law enforcement people.
Well,
those people were paying off people.
Thank you.
And then he killed himself because I think he couldn't live. Well, maybe
right
I
there,
don't know. I'm hoping. My hope is, which I don't think it's the truth, but my hope is that he felt so shitty about what he did to his victims that he just couldn't deal with it anymore. Which is not the case. I think he was murdered, but whatever, you know.
So the medical examiner looked at Chris Bush says that it was he doesn't think it was a suicide. Something interesting about that, dive right into it, is Chris Bush was dead with a photo of a drawing, a sketch, a portrait of a little boy.
I saw it. Oh, I didn't send it to you. I should have.
So this child looked ironically like Mark Stebbins screaming in pain.
Just look up Mark Stebbins pencil drawing.
I'm gonna not put that one on camera because I also heard about this. Because the brother even said, like, his brother's like, that's my brother in that picture, and I was like, no, I don't want to see that.
Chris was a known artist.
Okay, I respect that.
And his body was found just isn't congruent with the suicide. So it would almost seem as if Chris was the one that was scapegoated for one, but also just the weakest link in this whole thing, because it's obvious that Arch Sloan disposed of these bodies. Chris, they might have been afraid that he was going to roll and uncover the whole thing, so they killed him, and they planted this evidence on him, and they said, look, it was Chris. I mean, Chris was a known accomplice. Something else about Arch Sloan that's interesting is the night that I took a little note on this. Let me find it. Okay. So that Mark Stebbins disappeared, Arch Sloan had some sort of workshop that he worked in, and it was in an area that the cops would patrol at night. Guard. Arch Sloan called into the police that night to let them know, like, hey, I'm going to be working late tonight. If you see the lights on in my garage, don't come by.
Oh, nothing to see here.
Yeah.
How do you tell the police, hey, don't search this?
Hey, cops, if you see someone murdered in front of my house, maybe don't do anything about it.
And then we find hair that connects Mark Stebbins' bodies to Arch Sloan's vehicle. Like, Arch Sloan is obvious here. Chris Bush is obvious here. Greg Green is obvious here. Like, call them out. Why are they not convicted? I said you're not going to say anything bad about the cops, but I think it's so important to show.
Oh no, I don't give them credit for this one.
Telling the truth. The cops are covering it up.
Why aren't we closing this case? Like, everything is right here. Everything is connected, and it's right here.
You know what sucks? You know what's also true? Sorry, I'm getting excited about this.
Yeah, I know.
Because every time somebody tells you this person's crazy, he's attacking us for not doing our job, this person's causing a problem, whatever, those people are usually right. They are saying these things about, or were, about Mr. Barry King, and saying that he was just not giving up, basically. They were just so mad that he wasn't giving up. It's like, there's gotta be some truth to this. If they were influencing all these high-profile people, who's to say that they didn't corrupt some fucking cops or judges or people to help them, lawyers, to help them make these problems go away?
Another thing I found in my research, so Chris Bush, in his investigation, admitted to picking up children in some of the areas that these kids were suspected to be picked up in, where they went missing from. So Bush had admitted to that. He was found with a suitcase with porn ligatures. Is that what we would call it? Ligature, like the ropes that could have been used to bind these kids. All these kids had ligature marks on their wrists as if they were
Up to restraints. Yeah.
And 2 guns. So.
It's there's just, I think the fact that it does turn from a serial killer, and I think Richard brought this up in the comments, like, so do you think it's one killer, a solo job, or they're all, I think it's all connected. Like, this is not just a matter of one person doing horrible things. It's like we said from the beginning, it's a network of people who have been protecting.
I personally think all of them were involved, but they just couldn't figure out who exactly did what.
From what I heard, there were again 5 DNA matches to like 5 different people. We have Vince Gunnels, we have Chris Bush, we have Greg Green, we have Arch Sloan. There was one more, and I don't know if it was Lamborghini. There was one more involved in this, and then there was a mystery man. So there
was
was it Lawson?
Lawson, it could have been Lawson.
There's there's a Richard Lawson.
So Lawson,
he was the one who was trying to get a deal.
Oh, I need to plug it.
This motherfucker was talking about a dude named Sheldon was the last name. Do you remember Sheldon?
Sheldon? No, I don't remember a Sheldon.
There was a David Norberg.
Sheldon was the man with the island, Francis Sheldon.
Oh, it was his island.
That's him. Okay, yeah.
Okay, so he was responsible.
Richard Lawson was a guy from Ohio who was trying to link this sex ring.
Lawson was interviewed and said, "I know who did." Hold on, I have this.
They didn't take him seriously.
Snow killing. That's what. So he gave them, and I want to say that he connected. But there's other names. I'm not even going to throw these other names out because I don't have enough info on them. But he connected 4 other people.
They were trying. Okay, but Richard, he was trying to.
Sorry, y'all. I'm back.
Get away with it, or just away with anything. He was like, "I'll give you information if you give me a deal." Like,
You only do that kind of stuff when you know you can get away with ratting on other people. And there was enough people to rat on that he was expecting himself to get away with it all.
Oh, and he thought he was going to live like a king.
At the moment, they've pretty much all gotten away with it, whether some of them are dead or not. The only one that I saw on the list of names that we haven't brought up is David Norberg, who I don't know.
I mentioned him a second ago. They exhumed his body to get some DNA, but
that was no DNA connection to Norberg.
No, they exhumed him just because he was affiliated with some people.
Unfortunately, that doesn't mean he's not guilty of something in this situation, because I fully believe
that. Didn't find the DNA. You really think it was the guy that died that did it? Everything?
Okay.
Yeah, no, that makes no sense. I fully believe that the suspected victims as well. You have Donna, Sarah, Jane Allen, Kimberly King.
We didn't
and a few others. I fully believe that there's still something to be done about that in this situation. And as Elle brought up earlier, the police in this story do not get any kind of pass. There was so many problems with the investigation, pretty much from day one, when there was families that were doing their best to cooperate with them. A lot of the times these cases, when they go cold, is not because there's no evidence, it's because there's no one who cares about the victims. Unfortunately, the term in the U.S. is the less dead. When you hear about cases like the Green River Killer or Richard Ramirez,
why you see all these people having to pay.
This doesn't fall under a less dead case, though.
Exactly, yeah.
prostitutes, the homeless, people that we just don't see because they're not level of society.
Yeah. This is the ones that should be found just by statistics and by eyes.
A big part of that's real crazy is at the time, this was the most money spent on an investigation. This was the largest investigation for a murder, like in U.S. history at the time. This was a huge thing. And the people that we're talking about either died or were locked up and were put away for life, but they were never connected to this case.
Yeah.
And that's what's weird.
And they never are they?
And they closed the case.
Yeah.
And the murder stopped, as if they knew, like, okay, we did this, but like, why aren't we naming the names?
Yeah. It kind of the same.
This whole case reminded me of the Epstein shit.
It kind of
if you think about how many children go missing and like Epstein's influence all over the country, he had money, he had people, he had, obviously it's not just him alone, but he had the biggest monopoly on it. I assume.
These people had convictions, though. What's crazy? Tim Lamborghini is the name that we've been talking about a lot. I have a note of his convictions. So Tim Lamborghini, when he was initially interrogated, he failed his polygraph miserably. He had a history of almost murdering a boy by smothering him, and he drove around with him in his car and then just kind of dumped his body. He thought that he had killed him, but he hadn't killed him, and he dumped him in a hospital. He said something after he was accused, like, oh, God has forgiven me. Just some weird thing. This man had 7 counts. He went down for 7 counts of child molestation and received life felonies for those. So he was put away. He was also still in 11 minutes. If he would take another polygraph, and he turned it down, pled guilty, and was put away.
Yeah. So again, yeah, it goes like you can look at Sloan also in prison, not connected to this, but he's for different reasons. Gunnell, I believe he's also in prison, right?
Gunnell was in and out of prison. I think.
Okay, that's.
I don't think he actually. Yeah, he didn't do like a stint. Like he was like in and out. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a lifetime of just being addicted to drugs and being in and out of jail because of.
Yeah. He never was pinned for anything. He was never convicted. Never thought as like a serious suspect. But yeah, he did spend time in and out of jail. I don't know where he is now. I don't know if he's dead. I didn't.
Alive. I think he's alive and in.
I think he's still alive, but I
didn't look it up. I don't always want to know
where they're at.
I'm being real about that. I don't always want to know.
I think I know you were going into the Epstein one, but I think this reminds me more of there's a book I have to find called The Franklin Cover-Up that is kind of set almost in the same period where it's not.
Was it the foreign dude?
No. This was U.S. politicians mixed with some other businessmen. The Franklin Credit Union in North Dakota is where it's all set at, with a couple of low-end Republican politicians in the area. We're doing basically what we're talking about now, but on a much bigger scale. Like I think that's another. I know it's going to be another hard topic, but
there was like a. There was
I don't want to do it anytime soon.
There was the Dutch guy, right? Was he Dutch?
Hey, what are we talking about?
I don't know the Dutch guy.
Dude that had his daughter down in his basement.
Pedo ring.
Oh,
I thought that was a German guy.
That was a German guy. You're right.
Was he German?
No, we're talking about something else.
I think it's a different case, but that's another horrible. Gosh, these are all just.
Oh, I'm talking about the guy who literally was talking about how he used to abduct children for rich people so that they could host like hunting parties in their castles.
That's horrible.
And yeah, they would cut and rape the children and then set them loose in the woods and then send their dogs after them.
Oh, yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah. Oh, God. All right.
Yeah, that.
We need a much nicer topic between now and anything else we just mentioned. I need a little break there.
The next one, wait, hold on. Let's see what we got going on for next week. Let me see if I have something.
Another thing that I want to say about the mishandling of evidence by the medical examiners and by the police.
Oh, God. Okay, let's do it.
Found right at the beginning, we didn't know this was a serial murder case. We didn't know what it was. Robert Sillery was the medical examiner, the coroner, if you want to call it, whatever. This man was later charged with botching and throwing a lot of cases, but the detective that found Mark's body was like, no, we're not going to give this to Sillery. He's going to fuck this up. So he ends up just doing his own like self-taught crime scene breakdown, takes him to an office. The forensic people find out later, like a month or so later, that while he was in this office, someone had thrown a dirty blanket over him. So this had corrupted some of the evidence because they don't know if what they found on the body was from the blanket, if what was on the blanket came from the body. There was just everything about this case was mishandled from the gate.
Crazy.
Yeah. So
of course you don't hear any of that shit, even in the interviews. I think maybe they're not allowed to talk about that stuff.
Catherine King has that information. Timothy King's older sister has a lot of information. And she talked, her and Jay Rubin, they worked on this case for years. They spent 10 years writing a book and just going over evidence and buying reports and talking to detectives and
what's disturbing about this whole thing is that you find how many men abuse children every single fucking day, and you wonder, how do these people get away with it? How?
I mean, in this case, the cops had some of these people as informants, from what I hear. And it could be speculation, but I'm getting it from like people that were involved in the case that have been putting out. But they did knew that they were out there. People had, and they left them on the street, thinking to get them, I don't know, closer to the next thing. I don't know what the next level up is above murder, but it kind of just happened right in everyone's face, it seemed like, with this case, which is really sad.
Which, as you brought up before, with the mother paying off some of the victims before, there's no reason that other things like that in the background couldn't have happened with the police themselves, especially seeing tampering of evidence like that. It's not out of the realm of possibility that some of these guys, I'm not going to like say names that I don't know, but it's not impossible to think that some of them were involved themselves in an act on this island, on Norfolk Island, and just didn't want to be, found out about it. So it's easier to, okay, no, we don't know who did it. Don't worry about it. It's cold. It's never going to happen again. We're fine.
Yeah, these were put away. We locked them up. Don't worry about it. Like, close, walk away from it. Yeah. Something even as easy as, this Robert Sillery, the medical examiner who was known to botch these things, it could have been as easy as like, oh, put Sillery on it.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
This man was caught like drunk just with a bottle of bourbon, looking over bodies. You know what I mean? Like,
in his defense, though, I can also see myself doing that, but I'm not a coroner. So I'm allowed to drink.
There you go.
Self doing that, you wouldn't do that. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't be a coroner though, so I would be like drinking at a different time.
Yeah.
So okay. Yeah.
On that case, doing it want to solve the case, right?
Exactly. You think you would do 100%.
I would hope that if I die before my husband, he would send me to a female coroner, or not even that, just like a female mortician, because the amount of stories I've heard about men abusing the bodies.
I would like to say
even
that
in death, women can't be left the fuck alone.
I would love to say that that's not like the case, but there's a very real story that happened in my hometown about just that. A more
Ventura?
what's not a morgue.
Oh, you guys just lived in Ventura for a while.
No, it was right next to where my sister was living at the time. I don't know, what do you call the building? The
A mortuary? Is that
mortuary? Yeah, a mortuary. I think
A
I was
morgue?
trying. Mortuary, yeah.
It's a morgue.
Yeah. Well, the father and the son who ran it were discovered to have a disease that comes from dead bodies. And
Oh my god, when you fuck the dead bodies, the STIs you get from it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Oh.
it was the Garcia's mortuary. I can say this because it's all true. And yeah, I wish I like this
Why
is
have
those
you
moments
not
where, like,
told me about this? We could have made this into an episode.
it's just
Is it still traumatizing for you?
And just mishandling corpses. That could be a whole episode.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's across the world.
That's a good idea.
After this past
Write that down, Miguel. That's a good idea. Thank you, Al.
yeah, after the pandemic, there was so many cases of this where people were just getting so many bodies, they didn't know what to do with them, and so many people got caught just like
Also because of the sickness itself, the coronavirus. Yeah, people were dying, of course, but because Corona was like really expediting things, people were running out of places to put bodies.
Exactly.
And especially because there was like nobody could work. So what the fuck are you gonna do with all these bodies? My best friend, she lives in Canada now, but she is a best friend I had in Bell Gardens, and her grandmother passed away in California, and she lived in Canada. And so she died during COVID. So her transferring her body, like they left her sitting in a freezer for weeks. Just, it was horrific for my friend. And I'm not going to go into more detail, but it was just really sad. Like that whole time was crazy.
Honestly, yeah, and not to downplay that, that's horrible. You know what I mean? No one should have to wait that long to like get their closure. There were cases where they were just like, put it over here. They find U-Haul trucks with just with
bodies and
Yes. They're like, we don't know what to do with them, so we're just gonna put them here.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god, those poor fucking people's family members. Like, those poor people, like, they lost all dignity once they did that to them. That's so sad.
One of my great uncles wasn't allowed to come back to the States. He passed away in Mexico, and we never got the body back. Yeah, it was
horrible.
So
hopefully they figure it out the next pandemic, because I guarantee another one's gonna come.
I'm going with I don't want next pandemic.
I'm not saying I want it. I'm saying they're gonna do it, no matter if we want it or not. They're gonna do it.
I'm gonna sit it out. I'm gonna just go ahead and lock my door and I'm just gonna relax inside.
Okay, goodbye.
I'm relaxing. I worked the whole time. I worked at Amazon the entire time.
I worked at the tattoo shop. I took like a month off, but then I went back to work at the tattoo shop, and I was like, "Fuck this! People are coming in the back doors." I'm not gonna say where I work because I don't want him to get in trouble, even though I hate him.
No, we couldn't tattoo. Tattooing down for 3 months like this, so I was at Amazon being a fucking loser. Like, I don't know why I did that.
They weren't supposed to be. We were letting people in the back door because we were exercising our right to work, and like, fuck you. We're not gonna let you tell us what we're gonna fucking do. People had to fucking work. I had to work.
My right.
Artists had to work.
Next time. Next play, sitting this one out.
Oh, I like it. Honestly, yeah. I went crazy during that because my job, we have a family business and we do the cigar stuff.
Right. Yep.
I had to sit at home for like 2 months, and I literally was like, I was like a crackhead trying to go back to work. I don't know what that's like. I've had a job since I was 10.
Wait,
that's a Mexican in you, bro. They start working you young.
The the pandemic, I feel like it should have been booming. Everyone should have been playing video poker.
See, that's
Everyone should have been.
They were drinking. I know everybody was fucking drinking. Why weren't they smoking cigars? Or did you guys not have the product out?
Oh, we were.
Oh no, the thing was the lounges closed down because we do promotions for a lot of people too. So that part of the job dried up. So all of a sudden I started waking up at 8 a.m. every day and doing a show for people online. Like, hey, great American morning, hang out with me. I'm gonna smoke a cigar at you.
Yeah.
And
you made me get my ass up so early a couple times. I was so mad, but I did it because I love you.
It really saved me during that because I know how you feel. Like I would have done anything to be just working again. I hated that feeling of feeling so useless for a while. Ugh. Anyway, to wrap up today's very, very harsh topic of the Oakland County child murders, the answer to it is not as definitive as we hope, but I think for the consensus here, we know a lot of people were involved and guilty of this. And it's just a matter of hopefully one day the families get to say it and see it in court that these are the people responsible. And maybe they aren't brought to justice, but there's closure, proper closure for them. Right. I really hope that happens.
At least they're siblings, because the siblings are the ones that are like alive right now that we know of.
We also want people to be named. Like, you might be dead, but you're going to go down for what you did.
Yes. Even if they're dead, like, we want their legacy to be that they were fucking horrific to people.
Yeah. Even more than it already is.
I stand humiliation. I don't give a fuck what anybody says.
You know what I mean? Like, you are accountable for what you did.
Yeah.
100%.
If you're fucking shitty, you're going to get treated shitty. And I want that to be in the back of everybody's mind.
I'm cool with that.
Forever.
I'm down for that. But I'm going to wrap it for today, guys, because we are well over our hour.
So great to have you on. You are one of my favorite guests so far. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you and your fucking hard fucking work and your research, because damn, I gotta step up my fucking game.
Yeah, I love talking about true crime. I'll do it again.
So do I. And you know what? We're gonna have you on again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, folks. I would like to point out that Lex and Marlene will be back. It'll be a recorded series for a little bit for them. So instead of at Tuesday nights, it'll be on Tuesdays. That will be coming back very soon. So if you missed them, don't, because you're going to see them again soon. So I hope you like that. Elle, yes, absolutely. We want you back on whenever you can.
Yes, ma'am.
As many times as you can. All right. And for that, you all have a great rest of your Thursday night, and we will see you next week.
Bye, ghouls. Thank you.